I really liked Back to the Barn. It was tons of fun with some warm, heartfelt moments, and it even contained character development. It was a silly episode, but despite that, it managed to be very well-rounded. The episode starts off with Peridot recapping everything we already know about the cluster, which did make last episode's cliffhanger-style ending seem a tad unnecessary. It's a bit odd that everyone returned to the temple for the explanation rather than Peridot utilizing the kindergarten electronics she had already set up to give accompanying visual displays. That would have also undeniably confirmed the validity of her claims regarding the cluster to the crystal gems. Although, it might be a bit better that Peridot didn't do that, considering how seeing displays of all the gem shards utilized for experimentation would trigger some harsh emotional reactions in the crystal gems. Steven acting as Peridot's visual aid for the recap was also a great way to transition us from a serious "everyone on the planet is going to die" tone into a more comedic and goofy tone that the rest of the episode takes. One new bit of information from Peridot's briefing is that Peridot has knowledge on what the cluster is supposed to look like. It's unclear as to whether she has seen one of these things in person or just read reports on the visual appearance, but it does confirm that Homeworld has successfully made a cluster weapon before, which is a frightening thought for the future. Peridot and Pearl both independently come up with the same solution to the cluster problem, which sets us up for the conflict about to emerge between the two. But before that conflict emerges in full, Steven, in a desperate attempt to save his remaining electronics, relocates everyone to the barn where Pearl previously nearly killed Steven and herself in an attempt to visit a place that sees her as a coat rack. It's at the barn that we get a lot of new information regarding Homeworld and confirmation of what many have guessed is the reason behind Pearl's inferiority complex and her specific repeated line of "I'm just a Pearl." Homeworld does indeed have a caste system, and most, if not all gems within it, have a primary specified role for their existence. Peridots are essentially technicians, whereas Pearls are nothing but made-like accessories for high-ranking gems. Pearls are seen more as objects than as individuals. I laughed really hard at Peridot's delivery when she asks,
"How do you get her to leave?"
But after we find out Peridot's dialogue is not because of her haughtiness, but rather a combination of classism and racism ingrained in all gems residing on Homeworld, I felt really bad about laughing. Even at the end of the episode, when Peridot is starting to learn and come around, her quote-unquote compliment to Pearl is very backhanded, akin to saying, "You're quite good at science, for a woman." For such a goofy and comedic episode, you wouldn't expect it to simultaneously be tackling such a serious issue, but Steven Universe goes there. And I'm glad that, by the end, Peridot isn't completely wiped of her bigotry in one episode. These things take time and progress in multiple steps. One thing that gave me shivers in regards to this new information about the Pearl cast is how many scenes in previous episodes can be interpreted with new nuance. The dialogue exchange Pearl simulates in the episode Rose's Scabbard, particularly when Rose says,
"My Pearl."
In light of the new information obtained in this episode, that becomes a much more unsettling conversation. The entire relationship Pearl and Rose had in the past takes on new context. It's not merely idealistic devotion taken to unhealthy levels. There was an overlay of owner and possession identities, which makes events like the "do it for her" montage even more frightening and all sorts of screwed up. This episode's relevation retroactively adds so many new layers to the show, and that's just remarkable. Pearl's reactions to Peridot's verbal assault early in the episode are all fantastic. For thousands of years now, Pearl has been seen as an equal on Earth, but she is once again being subjugated to the oppressive perspective of her society, and in front of Steven to boot, which makes her embarrassed and taken aback. Often Pearl is lost for words as Peridot continues with her stream of insults, and only when Peridot remarks on Pearl's sash being representative of a high-ranking owner. When remember, the sash is new to Pearl's design after she regenerated, and can very well be argued to be one indicator of Pearl's individuality. Only then does Pearl get angry and yell back at Peridot. The scripting for this exchange was just incredibly well done. I was actually a bit startled at how Steven was unable to comprehend how Pearl was facing oppression she has long since found freedom from. This isn't a criticism. In fact, I think it makes it more interesting that we finally see another flaw from Steven. Those are pretty rare. I guess this might be a mixture of Steven being too young and this alternate reality Earth being more accepting to social issues in general compared to our own world. Steven is awestruck by the concept of hundreds of pearls and hijacks Pearl's and Peridot's fight for his own gain, a nearly fetishistic desire to see real-life giant robots. It's really inconsiderate and naive of Steven to act the way he did when Pearl is basically facing an emotional crisis personified. If not for the development Pearl has recently had in episodes such as Friendship, she may very well have broken down under the weight of Peridot's words. This episode was amazing and inspiring in that we see a character overcome their own insecurities and basically punch a manifestation of them right in the face. I cannot see Pearl from season 1 being able to hold her own emotionally like she did in this episode, and it was a real testament to her growth. It's all the more amazing because at the end of the episode, Pearl holds no grudge against Peridot and wants to help her. For Steven to take until the end of the episode to finally back Pearl up, and for him to take a "you're both good, just cooperate" approach at the start of the episode while Pearl is being berated, that just screams that our little protagonist has still much to learn. Still, Steven deserves some props for his speech towards the end of the episode where he both cheers Pearl up and makes Peridot's win feel like a loss. Garnet and Amethyst take a very back seat in this episode, and I don't have a problem with that. One could ask why Garnet is alright with wasting time on giant robots when the entire planet is in danger, but there's a simple and believable explanation without even needing to bring up future vision, which I myself would rather ignore the existence of whenever possible. If Pearl and Peridot don't attain enough mutual respect to at the very least work together, progress will go much slower for the entire build duration. So it would be faster to waste a day having them come around to one another, or in other words, weaken Peridot's racism, than it would be to force them to work together against their will, or have them work completely independently of one another. By the way, I complained about Peridot being drawn a bit awkwardly last episode, where her limbs were too thin. In this episode, she is back to proper form and looks great. In fact, this entire episode looked great, with smooth animation and well-crafted fluid expressions from the characters. So in summary, as I said at the start of this review, the episode was awesome. I think Back to the Barn is one of the funniest Steven Universe episodes. It's packed with both great visual and spoken comedy. While funny, it also tackles a serious social issue and does it well. The episode presents new information that refines the way we look at the series. It also manages to be inspiring by showing the net growth of Pearl, and it moves Peridot's development forward a step. In a span of 11 minutes, one can't reasonably ask for more. Now to wonder whether Garnet and Amethyst will each get an episode to grow their bond with Peridot, as Pearl did in this episode.
Break bread with the enemy. No matter how many cats I break bread with, I break who you sending me.